Sean Hook's Newsmaker Saturday starts now.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker Saturday. I don't need to tell you there is a lot going on in the world right now, and as usual, the White House is right in the middle of it. And that's why we asked Fox White House correspondent Jacqui Heinrich to join us to make a little sense of everything going on in Washington. Jacqui, great to see you.
Thanks for having me, John.
Jacqui, big week at the White House. There's a lot happening, obviously, but this little exchange, and you were the one behind it, asking President Biden whether Vladimir Putin is a war criminal. Tell me how that all went down, because initially he said no.
Mr. President, after everything we've seen, are you ready to call Putin a war criminal?
No.
Yeah, so the president was finishing an event and making his way out of the room that we were all in, and I grabbed him on his way out and said, after everything that we've seen, are you ready to call Putin a war criminal? And he was looking at me and he said no, but evidently he didn't either understand the question or hear it right. And on his way out, and I could see him the entire time from my vantage point. He, greeted a couple of women who had been waiting for him, and then before he made it out of the room, turned back around, asked me to clarify my question, and said, were you asking me, and I said, are you ready to call Putin a war criminal? And he said, oh, I think he is a war criminal.
A war criminal, sir.
I think he is a war criminal.
Will you be meeting?
So I think he was just mulling over what he had just been asked, and evidently was not happy with the first answer that he gave. But there had been some question about whether somebody, tapped him on the shoulder, or an aide got in his ear and said, hey, you better, take a second stab at that. But that's not at all what happened. I had eyes on him the whole time. We've got video of it, and he just, thought about it and then turn back around.
This war criminal characterization is so interesting. I mean, I think what's happening is savagery, obviously, in Ukraine. But you do have this nuance where you've got civilians fighting. They're not in uniform. And so, this is tricky business, right? Under international law, to declare Putin's attack maybe a war crime if they may not know that they're hitting what they think is an enemy encampment, for lack of a better word.
I think the amount of destruction that we've seen across Ukraine pretty much shows that they know that they're hitting civilians.
Yes.
I mean, you've seen, rockets and mortar fire go into children's dance studios, maternity hospitals, pediatric hospitals, and, it has happened on so many occasions that it would be hard to excuse any of that and say, well, maybe they didn't know. We don't at this point know if journalists are being targeted, but we know that 4 have been killed now, which is also a war crime. So there are a number, obviously, of different war crimes that are being investigated internationally. The State Department is doing its official assessment of what those war crimes are, and then there'll be a process that will go through the international court and make that official designation and hopefully come up with some sort of punishment, for lack of a better word. But the president, his assessment was a personal one, and the Secretary of State today echoing his view, saying that his personal opinion, also Secretary Blinken, is that Putin has committed war crimes and Russia has committed war crimes.
Yeah, it's now a united front on that. I'm kind of putting out there how Russia may argue it, and that's a possibility. You asked Jen Psaki on Thursday a very important question about Russia, if they're committing war crimes vis-a-vis Putin. Why is Russia leading these talks with Iran on a nuclear deal that could be coming within days? This goes back to 2015 under the Biden administration.
Yeah, the view of the White House is that getting a nuclear deal with Iran is worth being at the table with Russia, even if that means that we are dealing with a war criminal in that manner. However, the deal's not yet done. There's been a lot of criticism, bipartisan criticism, about some of the possible iterations of it that have been floated. One demand being that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps be delisted from the terror blacklist. That is the Islamic military wing of Iran, and so that was met with a lot of forceful pushback. And when I asked Jen Psaki about it, She refused to, weigh in, basically just saying there isn't a deal yet. So perhaps that doesn't end up being something that's in the final package, but we are, awaiting any word on what it contains. And then, of course, there is an obligation under the Iran Nuclear Deal Agreement Act that Congress get a chance to review and weigh in on this. The White House said today that they would follow the law when it comes to that. Didn't make a commitment that Congress would have to, sign off on this and vote on it, but said that they would follow the law in meeting their obligations.
One of the things that's interesting in there's reporting that a Russia energy firm is poised to cash in on about a $10 billion contract to build out one of Iran's nuclear plants. So there are Republicans, Ted Cruz namely, they're saying, wait a minute, we're going to let Russia enrich themselves on the backs of Iran when we're in the middle of trying to sanction them.
Yeah, and while we're also telling China, hey, you better not help Russia evade sanctions, otherwise we're going to have secondary sanctions on the table for you. Sanctions relief is sort of at the core of this negotiation, at least from Russia's perspective, and also from Iran's perspective. What ends up getting in that final package, we're all waiting to see. But certainly sanctions relief is a major piece of this. And it's a tough argument to make, while we're watching everything unfold in Ukraine and we are, throwing the full weight of economic sanctions from the U.S. and from all of our allies on Russia, and threatening anyone who helps them with the same to be, on the side saying, well, we'll give you a pass on this because we really need a nuclear deal.
Jacqui, I think people at home would be really curious about kind of the tenor in the White House press room, in the briefing room. Now, you were a correspondent on Capitol Hill. You covered Congress. You've been there for about a year, I think, now. What is the tenor, for instance, with Jen Psaki? What's your relationship with her outside of all of this? She knows you're going to probably be the thorn in her side in the press briefing room. Is that a fair characterization?
Maybe. Both myself and my colleague Peter, I think we try often to ask questions that aren't being asked, and certainly are important questions that our audience wants answered. And oftentimes you're not getting those kinds of questions from the other media in the room. But we both have a good working relationship with Jen Psaki and with others in the administration. We can get our questions answered over email, or walk back into the press shop and say, hey, can we talk about this? When you're watching the briefing going on, from my perspective, I would like a straightforward answer on the questions that I'm asking. But if your job, if you're the White House, you want your spokesperson to return to the talking points that you want to hammer home. So she's doing her job, I'm doing my job, and you all get to watch.
Yeah, right. No, I think that's really instructive, because I've had the same experience that sometimes you've got to go into the office and say, listen, just off the record, let's just clear the air a little bit. This isn't personal. I've got to ask you some things that you may not like, and you navigate around it. It's a working relationship.
It is. She's a professional person. Pretty much everyone in this White House is a consummate professional. We've got great relationships with them. And it's, of course, an honor to cover the White House. I think that no matter who the president is, you have to always respect this office. And so I bring that sensibility with me every day to the briefing room.
I think that's wise. Okay, now President Biden, obviously a major plank of his spending on social programs, Build Back Better Act, that is stalled. But he's getting a lot of pressure now from progressives in Congress who want to piecemeal this thing and see if they can't have some of this passed by executive order. Where is that going? Do you think it may bear fruit? And are they receptive to this at the White House? Because President Biden said that he didn't want to go down that road.
Well, I think it's the preference of, Democrats in Congress and the White House to have this go through, the legislative process, because it's a little bit more permanent than an executive order. that can just be undone by the next administration. That being said, I think that we've seen the gridlock on Capitol Hill when it comes to especially this social spending plan. And, the progressives are seeing we have a chance where we have a Democratic administration and we want to make some big sweeping changes to the way that our society deals with our elders and our children and things like that. And they want to, enact those changes that they see as necessary through any means possible. I don't know how much of it is going to be able to be done by executive order, because remember, Congress holds the purse string, so anything that has to do with spending is going to have to go back to Capitol Hill. But on something like police reform, you might see the White House put out some executive orders, which would be at a federal level. That's their purview, and then it would, act as instruction to state and local and tribal authorities to then try to emulate something like that. You're having to watch Democrats get creative because their party is not unified, and that is really, the thorn in the president's side throughout the course of this administration. Is he has a choice of either uniting his party and getting something done that his party, his base really wants, or do you be the bipartisan person that you campaigned as and do work across the aisle and try to restore the unity of the whole nation, maybe not just your country. So he's having to make that choice on a daily basis.
Jacqui, the Green New Deal was a big cornerstone of the Biden presidency. Now with gas prices, energy prices, all of this, people really feeling pain at the pump. They're kind of caught right now, aren't they, between a rock and a hard place? They're trying to kind of say that this is all Vladimir Putin's doing, but energy prices were going up far before all of this happened in Ukraine. How are they walking that line, and do you think this kind of pinning it on Putin is working?
Well, I think that they rolled out this sort of Putin price hike hashtag right around the same time that the president called for a ban on Russian oil. And I think that there was some hesitation from the administration, despite pressure from both sides of the aisle in Congress, because there was this fear that the increase in gas prices was going to, the blame was going to go straight to Biden on that. And so how do you, protect yourself from blame when you're doing the thing that people are calling for? Now, that does not obviously explain the gas prices that have been going up since the beginning of his administration. The White House often points to the pandemic as the root cause of inflation, and there is a lot of truth to that. However, the president's spending package has also gotten a lot of criticism for contributing to that. The American Rescue Plan putting, money in the pockets of people when they were out of work. You've got more money to spend and fewer goods because of this snarled supply chain. So now you've got a big problem, and that's why people in Congress are so hesitant to pass even more spending bills. I don't know that the average American is willing to sort of parse all these different pieces of it and determine what exactly was the cause of their lunch being double the cost.
Yeah.
I think they're just feeling that pain in their wallet, and they're looking to the White House to fix it. And that is really where some new action needs to happen. He has a few tools left at his disposal. He could also, streamline the permitting process. There are a lot of environmental reviews that are redundant, that kind of thing that the oil industry heads complain about. So we'll see if that gets anywhere.
Well, yeah, we're waiting. Jacqui Heinrich at the White House. A lot of screaming out there on the North Lawn. There's somebody protesting. I don't know what's going on, but you held your composure.
An ongoing Ukraine protest since the start of the invasion. They're probably not leaving anytime soon.
Jacqui Heinrich on the North Lawn. Thank you, Jacqui. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thanks so much.
We're back in a minute on Newsmaker Saturday, talking about gas prices. And where does the green energy push go from here when everybody's worried about filling up their tank with the old-fashioned stuff? Back in a minute on Newsmaker Saturday. Back on Newsmaker Saturday, as you know, if you have gone to fill up your car, we are in the midst of the worst energy crisis we've been in this country in 50 years. And this is painful for a lot of people. The price of oil touched $1.39 a barrel. That's a 14-year high. A gallon of gas, which cost $2.42 in January of 2021, now costs just over $4, well over $4 now, an increase of pushing 70%. My car, I filled it up on Wednesday. Normally in the past, it was about 40 bucks, 66 bucks. It's a big change. One of the experts on this is Court Rich. He's an attorney. Thank you for being with us. We're in this for the long haul. There are no quick solutions to bring these prices down, right?
No, I think that's right. We're really just at the front end of it. I think we're going to see a lot of turmoil here going forward on this.
Now you are, I would say you're a renewable energy proponent. Is that a fair way to put it?
Absolutely. Yes, I am. I work in that space and help a lot of renewable energy companies enter the market here in Arizona and with national issues as well.
Okay, so nationally, if we just look at the numbers, wind turbines and solar panels right now in the United States can only produce 12% of our energy needs. And curiously, Court, it's the same breakdown in Arizona. Natural gas, nuclear power, and coal provided 88% of Arizona's electricity generation in 2020. So even though you're a renewable guy, there is no way we can run this economy and function as a country without oil and gas, right?
Well, for right now, absolutely. I mean, you can't just flip a switch, just like before we had.
But we're not even close.
Right. Absolutely. We're on our way that, things like this, crises, like what we've got going on in Russia, don't mean, hey, we need to turn off, oil and gas right away. But I think and hope that it will, spur us to go and, people that are paying as much as you are to fill up your tank of gas might look twice at that electric vehicle that's on the market. And there's more and more of them on the market every day. A lot of them made here in Arizona, which is good for us. And they might start moving in that direction a little faster than they otherwise would have.
True, but I may be able to afford one, but a lot of folks couldn't. And that's just the fact.
Well, like I said, there are more and more models on the road every day. And, if you watch the Super Bowl, you probably saw, 5 or 10 different commercials for new, affordably priced electric vehicles. So, but you're right. I mean, it's not a switch. There's not a, tomorrow everything is one way and it's different than it is today. It's a progression, and it's things like these events that we're looking at in the world right now that may hasten some of that change.
Does it make any sense to you, just looking at our overall energy strategy, that in absence of Russian oil, that we're now asking the Saudis, and apparently they didn't take our phone call, to produce more oil? So we've got to make book with some bad actors. Venezuela, we've got to deal with a dictator in Maduro to get more oil. And then we're starting to do, it looks like, back deals with Iran, who's really a problem. I mean, we are in, it strikes me, we're in a really untenable spot here.
Yeah, well, I mean, it underscores the whole problem with, a lot of folks that are in my world and talk about renewable energy really focus on climate and, clean energy and all those types of things, which are great. But I mean, when you look at, where we're buying our oil from and where the world is buying our oil from, other than the United States, which is the largest producer, pretty much everybody else that's a big producer is, an authoritarian regime that's using our money against us. And so, if that doesn't spur us to think about other alternatives, hopefully this really puts that in perspective. And it is ironic and sort of depressing that we have to, turn from Russia to those other countries that you mentioned. And that's, that shouldn't be the solution.
As a renewable proponent, and I think everybody, would love to see us get there, but even the goal on paper is not till 2050. That's still a long ways away. We're going to have some serious pain between now and then if we don't start producing more oil. Do you see any way around it? The other strategy would be heavy reliance on nuclear, which is clean.
Well, I mean, nuclear, there's a lot of controversy about that, and there's obviously, some risk involved. The one thing that is true about nuclear is, gosh, is it expensive? And you don't see it built because when they try, there's a utility on the East Coast right now that's like half a decade behind and tens of billions of dollars over budget on the most recent nuclear plant that's been attempted in the United States. So certainly that's not going to be a quick solution. The promise of renewable energy, solar, wind, batteries is that one, the technology is rapidly deployable. It can be put into service really quickly. The prices are coming down dramatically and quickly. And to the extent our energy needs are growing, there's no reason that they can't be served by that. But as you said, we do need, we need to make sure our economy continues today. And so, we need to figure out where to, how to balance that rising price of oil and, where we get that extra supply and how much extra people are willing to pay at the pump in the meantime.
Would you say that as a renewable proponent, you are also an all the above strategist, that you would favor using everything in our array to power the country?
Well, I think, all of the above, saying it like that has a lot of baggage with it, frankly. I mean, there's a lot of people that say, I'm for all of the above, and then they end up, saying, well, that's nice if solar ever comes along or if batteries ever come along. But they're usually saying that when they're out there rooting for the next, gas-fired power plant or something like that. And those things really aren't necessary today. We can get all that we need out of a new gas plant by combining solar, wind, and batteries, and we can do it affordably, reliably, and get the same benefits, but without and again, even if you're not into climate change or whatever, like I don't like going up Camelback Mountain and looking out over the valley and seeing all that smog. And so just the local impacts of burning fossil fuels, I mean, they have, not only do you see it in the air, but I mean, it's just like you can calculate the number of people that are going to get sick or that are going to die or have asthma and those kind of things. Just, it's like a math formula. You build a, polluting plant and that's what happens. And so, if there's a way to get around that, that's what we should absolutely be doing.
Cord, I wanted to just throw at you lessons from Germany. Germany moved to eliminate their nuclear and coal capabilities when green forms of energy then fell short. They could not power their country for any. They had one day out of their rosy scenario of powering their country with renewables. They were caught flat-footed. They had to fire up coal-fired plants again. Their prices of energy are 3 times the rest of Europe, 5 times our prices. They've done this in Germany, and it just has not worked. I think it's indisputable, frankly.
Well, it's a bit of an apples and oranges scenario. Germany, they were a first mover. And when you're a first mover on new technology, it's going to be way more expensive. I mean, the majority of the solar and renewables that were adopted in Germany were adopted well before, anything that we're seeing in the United States. Right now, it's indisputable that the cost of new solar and wind is cheaper than building a new gas plant, for example. It's like the cheapest that anything can be. And certainly, we can learn from their experience. They don't have, they're importing all of their natural gas from Russia. So that puts them in a just absolutely untenable position from a national security standpoint. There's a lot to learn from what they went through. And I don't think there's any chance that the United States would make those same mistakes. And certainly we wouldn't be paying the same prices for that technology that's now basically commoditized and super cheap.
It was interesting this week, Elon Musk, who is, one of the godfathers of the electric car in a lot of ways. He said in a tweet, hate to say it, but we need to increase oil and gas. Extraordinary times demand extraordinary measures. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think there's a practical reality here. You've got to deal with the issues that are at hand. And I'm not suggesting at all that, we don't need to power our economy today and make sure the gas prices don't get too high. I just hope that, this situation helps, hasten the transition to renewable energy. But it's not, in my mind, it's not a situation where we say we can't address the gas and fuel side supply at all during this crisis. We have to, only, single-mindedly focus on, renewables and those types of things. But certainly, renewables are the future. They're cheap, they work. And this, I think, will just make a lot of people move in that direction.
So we appreciate it. That's Court Rich, who's with the Rose Law Group, and he is the expert in renewable energy and regulatory law. We're back in a minute on Newsmaker Saturday. Thanks as always for joining us on Newsmaker Saturday. If you want to catch a prior program, and we have had a bunch of good guests on this program, you can open up the phone app and take the QR code. It'll take you right to the website, or you can put it in manually, fox10phoenix.com/newsmaker. We will see you next week on Newsmaker Saturday.